The war had lasted 12 years. 12 years of burning colonies, shattered fleets, and billions of human lives lost to the Dominion. Commander Cole had seen enough death to fill 1,000 nightmares. He had watched friends die in the cold vacuum of space. He had held soldiers as they took their last breaths on distant worlds. And now, sitting in a gray military office on Earth, he learned that humanity was losing. Admiral placed a single folder on the table between them. Her face was tired. Everyone looked tired these days. "We need 6 months," she said. 6 months to rebuild what's left of our fleet, 6 months to have any chance of survival. Opened the folder. Inside was a picture of an alien woman with silver skin and violet eyes. She was beautiful in a cold, distant way, like a statue carved from moonlight. "Princess," Admiral continued, "third daughter of the Empress, the Dominion has offered a path to peace, a symbolic marriage between their royal bloodline and a human representative." Understood immediately. They want us to submit, to admit we're inferior. "Yes, and we're going to let them think we have." The Admiral leaned forward. "The marriage contract contains a dissolution clause. Once peace is secured, the marriage ends. You go in, you play the obedient human husband, and you buy us time. 6 months, Commander, that's all we need." Looked at the picture again. The princess stared back at him with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of cold judgment. "And if they discover it's a trick?" Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "Then you'll probably die on an alien world very far from home." Thought about Earth. He thought about the blue oceans and green forests he had fought to protect for 12 bloody years. He thought about all the soldiers who had already given their lives. "When do I leave?" he asked. 3 weeks later, stood on the deck of a diplomatic vessel, watching Earth grow smaller through the observation window. The ship was unlike anything humans had built. The walls seemed to flow like liquid silver. The air smelled of flowers that didn't exist on any human world. The crew avoided him. When they looked at him at all, it was with a mixture of curiosity and disgust, like scientists examining a strange insect. Had read the briefings. To the humans were primitive creatures. They lived short lives, felt too much, and died too easily. They were children playing with weapons they didn't understand. The journey to Prime took 2 weeks. Spent the time studying. He learned the basics of language, their customs, their history. They had existed for over 50,000 years. They had built empires that spanned galaxies while humans were still living in caves. Their technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. But something in the historical records caught attention. They had nearly destroyed themselves in ancient civil wars, conflicts driven by passion and emotion. To survive, they had changed themselves. Over thousands of years, they had bred out their strongest feelings. They lived long lives now, sometimes over 1,000 years, but they experienced everything through a kind of emotional fog. They didn't feel joy or sorrow the way humans did. They had traded passion for survival. When the ship finally arrived at Prime, felt his breath catch in his throat. The planet was impossibly beautiful. Cities of crystal and light floated above purple oceans. Forests of silver trees stretched across continents. 3 moons hung in a pink sky, and everywhere looked, he saw wonders that human eyes had never witnessed. The crystalline palace stood at the heart of the capital city. It rose into the sky like a frozen waterfall, catching the light of the alien suns and scattering it into a million rainbows. Was escorted through halls that made Earth's greatest cathedrals look like simple huts. Nobles watched him pass with cold, curious eyes. Finally, he was brought to a great chamber where the wedding ceremony would take place. Hundreds had gathered, their silver faces expressionless, their violet eyes unblinking. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, stood Princess. She was taller than had expected. Her silver hair fell past her waist, and her skin seemed to glow with an inner light. She wore a gown that looked like it was made of starlight itself, but it was her eyes that held frozen. They were violet like all, but there was something different in them, something sharp and watchful. Walked the length of the great hall, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes on his back. His human heart pounded in his chest. His human sweat dampened his formal uniform. He was certain they could sense his fear, his nervousness, his humanity. When he reached the platform and stood before the princess, she looked down at him in silence. The moment stretched on. The watching nobles didn't move, didn't whisper. It was as if the entire room had turned to stone. Then Princess spoke. Her voice was like cold water over smooth stones. "You smell of fear and deceit, human." Felt his blood turn to ice. She knew. Somehow she already knew it was all a lie. His mission was over before it had even begun. But then the princess did something unexpected. The corner of her mouth lifted just slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. "How refreshing," she said softly, so only he could hear. "Everyone else here only smells of deceit." She extended her hand and took it. Her skin was cool against his palm. The ceremony proceeded. Words were spoken in the ancient tongue. Bonds were declared. And when it was finished, Cole found himself married to an alien princess, trapped in a palace of crystal and secrets, counting the days until he could escape. He did not know yet that escape would become the last thing he wanted. He did not know that the cold princess with violet eyes was already watching him with something that her people had forgotten how to name. He did not know that his short, burning human life was about to change everything. Life in the crystalline palace followed ancient patterns that had not changed in 10,000 years. Learned this quickly. The woke at the same hour, ate the same foods, spoke the same careful words. Everything was ritual. Everything was controlled. Was given chambers next to princess' rooms as tradition demanded, but she did not visit him. For the first 3 weeks, he barely saw her at all. She appeared at formal dinners, sitting at his side in perfect silence. She attended ceremonies where they stood together like beautiful statues, but she never spoke to him beyond what duty required. The court watched with cold fascination. He was a curiosity to them, a pet. Some nobles made jokes at his expense, speaking and they assumed he couldn't understand. They called him the Mayfly because humans lived such short lives. They wondered aloud how long it would take for the princess to grow bored of her primitive husband. Ignored them. He had a mission, 6 months. He just needed to survive 6 months. But had never been good at sitting still. He began to explore the palace. He talked to the servants, the guards, the workers who maintained the crystal halls. At first, they were confused by his attention. In society, the lower castes were invisible. No noble would ever speak to them as equals. But he learned their names. He asked about their families, their work, their lives. He thanked them when they brought his food or cleaned his rooms. Simple things, basic human courtesy. The servants didn't know what to make of him. One night discovered that a young handmaiden named had fallen ill. The healers had examined her and declared that she would recover in time. Then they left her alone in a cold room to suffer through her fever. Sat with her through the night. He brought her water and cool cloths. He told her stories about Earth, about blue skies and warm sunshine and oceans that sparkled like diamonds. She didn't understand most of his words, but she seemed comforted by his presence. When morning came, fever had broken. She looked up with wide violet eyes. "Why?" she asked in broken human speech. "Why you stay?" Smiled, because no one should be alone when they're sick. Word of what he had done spread through the palace. The nobles thought it was amusing. The primitive human treating a servant like a person. How strange, how foolish. But Princess did not find it amusing. She began to appear in unexpected places. Would be walking through the crystal gardens, and she would be there, watching him from behind a silver tree. He would be reading in the library, and she would enter silently, choosing a book from a nearby shelf. She never spoke, but she was always watching. One evening, as stood on a balcony looking up at the 3 moons, appeared beside him. "You confuse my people," she said. Turned to look at her. The moonlight made her silver skin glow like pearl. "Is that a problem?" "I have not decided yet." She was quiet for a moment. "The handmaiden, you stayed with her all night." "She was alone." "She is a servant. Her comfort is not your concern." "Where I come from," said carefully, "everyone's comfort matters. A servant, a soldier, a princess. We're all just people trying to get through life." Studied him with those sharp violet eyes. "Your species lives such short lives, 80 years, perhaps 100 if you are lucky. How do you bear it?" Thought about the question. "I think that's exactly why we care so much. We don't have time to waste. Every moment matters, every person matters, because it could all end tomorrow." Something flickered in his eyes. For just a moment her cold mask seemed to crack, then it was gone. "Tell me about your world," she said. So told her. He told her about Earth's oceans and mountains, about cities full of millions of people all living and loving and struggling together. He told her about music that could make you cry and stories that could make you laugh. He told her about the way humans fell in love, fast and hard and completely, like jumping off a cliff and trusting someone to catch you. listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "We used to feel such things," she finally said. "Long ago, before we changed ourselves, I have read about it in the ancient texts. Passion, joy, sorrow, love." She spoke the words like they were a foreign language. "We removed those things from our blood because they nearly destroyed us, but sometimes I wonder what we lost." Looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time he saw past the cold princess to something else beneath. A loneliness that stretched back centuries, a hunger for something she couldn't name. "It's not too late," he said softly. "To feel things, I mean, it's never too late." Turned away. "You are a strange creature, Cole." In the weeks that followed, their conversations continued. Late at night, when the palace was silent, would come to his balcony and ask him questions. What did hope feel like? What was grief? How did humans find the strength to love when they knew death would separate them so quickly? Answered as best he could. And slowly, so slowly he almost didn't notice, the ice around Princess began to melt. Then the assassin came. It happened at a formal dinner. A noble rose from his seat, pulled a blade of crystallized light and lunged at. The attack was fast, faster than any human could react. But was faster. She moved like liquid silver, crossing the distance in a heartbeat. Her hand caught the assassin's wrist and twisted. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the silent hall. The assassin screamed, didn't stop. She struck him twice more, and he fell to the ground, dead. The hall was frozen in shock. A princess of the royal blood had killed a noble with her bare hands, for a human. Stood over the body, silver blood on her fingers, and looked at the watching court with eyes that burned like violet fire. "The human is mine," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Touch him again, and I will remember it for the next 500 years." No one moved, no one spoke. Turned to and extended her hand. He took it, and she led him from the hall. That night, for the first time, understood that everything had changed. And he wasn't sure if that terrified him or thrilled him. 6 months passed faster than it expected. The war was officially over. Human and diplomats had signed peace treaties. Trade routes were opening. The shattered human fleet had been rebuilt in secret just as planned. Earth was safe. Received the coded message on a quiet morning. He read it 3 times, his hands steady but his heart racing. Mission accomplished. Initiate dissolution protocol, come home. He should have felt relieved. He should have been celebrating. The plan had worked perfectly. He had played his role, bought his people the time they needed, and now he could return to Earth as a hero. Everything he had worked for, everything he had sacrificed, had led to this moment. So why did he feel like someone had carved a hole in his chest? Walked to the window and looked out at the crystal city below. 6 months ago, this place had been foreign and frightening. Now he knew the name of every servant in the palace. He knew which gardens bloomed at sunset and which halls caught the light of the 3 moons. He knew the sound of footsteps, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the rare moments when her cold mask slipped and something warm flickered beneath. He knew he was in trouble. It had happened slowly, like water wearing away stone. The late-night conversations on the balcony. The questions about human emotion that became questions about his life, his dreams, his fears. The day she took his hand and led him to her private garden, a hidden place of silver flowers and singing fountains where no one else had been allowed for 200 years. "I come here when the emptiness becomes too heavy," she had told him that day. "When I need to remember that beauty still exists." Had looked at the garden, then at her. "Do you feel empty often?" Had been quiet for a long moment. "I have lived for 300 years. I have watched friends grow old and die. I have seen my 2 older sisters murdered in the succession wars. I have learned that caring too deeply is dangerous in my world." She paused. "But lately, I have begun to wonder if not caring at all is worse." Now, standing in his chambers with the dissolution order in his hand, thought about that moment. He thought about all the moments. The way he had laughed, actually laughed, when he told her a silly human joke. The way she had cried, silver tears streaming down silver cheeks, when he described losing his best friend in the war. The way she looked at him now, when she thought he wasn't watching, with an expression that made his human heart stumble. He had to tell her. She deserved to know the truth. Found in her garden. She was standing among the silver flowers, her face lifted toward the alien sky. She looked peaceful. She looked beautiful. She looked like someone who had finally allowed herself to hope. He said, and his voice cracked on her name. She turned, and her smile, that rare and precious smile, faded when she saw his face. "What is wrong?" Couldn't find the words. He handed her the message instead. Read it, her expression didn't change, but saw her hands begin to tremble. "The dissolution clause," she said. Her voice was flat, empty. "Of course, the marriage was political, temporary, I knew this." She looked up at him. "Your mission is complete. You can return to your people." You should go," she said. "There is nothing keeping you here." But she didn't move, and neither did. "The marriage was fake," he said slowly. "That part is true. I came here as a deception, a way to buy time for Earth. I expected to be ignored, used, maybe killed. I didn't expect." He stopped, struggling to find words. "I didn't expect you." His violet eyes were fixed on his face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere between the formal dinners and the midnight conversations, somewhere between learning your name and learning your heart, everything changed." Stepped closer to her. "I'm saying that leaving you might be the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've done a lot of hard things." Was very still. "You are human, your people need you, your home is waiting for you." "I know. And yet you hesitate." "Yes." The word hung in the air between them. Hands were still trembling. Her mask was cracking, and beneath it could see something raw and desperate trying to break free. "I have lived for 300 years, she whispered. "In all that time, I have never felt what I feel when I look at you. I did not even know such feelings were possible anymore. You taught me that there is more to existence than duty and survival. You taught me to hope." Her voice broke. "And now you tell me it was all a lie." "No," said firmly. "The mission was a lie, the politics were a lie, but this," he took her hands in his, "this is the most real thing I've ever known." Something shattered in size. 300 years of control, of carefully maintained emptiness, came crashing down. Tears began to fall, silver drops sliding down her silver cheeks. Had never seen a cry before. He didn't know if anyone had in centuries. "You were never supposed to be real," she said through her tears. "You were supposed to be a symbol, a political inconvenience, not this." She gripped his hands. "I cannot let you go. I have only just learned how to feel. I cannot go back to the emptiness. I cannot." Felt his own eyes burning. Human tears for an alien princess who had somehow become the center of his universe. "Then ask me to stay," he said. Looked at him, her violet eyes shimmering with tears and something else, something fierce and desperate and beautiful. "Stay," she whispered. "Not because of politics, not because of duty. Stay because I cannot imagine facing the next 500 years without you. Stay because you are the first person who ever made me feel alive." Pulled her close, holding her against his chest, feeling her tears soak into his shirt. "I'll stay," he said, "but not because you won't let me go, because I don't want to leave." In the garden of silver flowers, surrounded by the beauty of an alien world, a human soldier and an alien princess held each other as the walls between them finally crumbled to dust. But outside the garden, the universe was already stirring. The decision they had made would shake empires and change history. They just didn't know it yet. The announcement shook both human and space like an earthquake. Princess had invoked the ancient right of sole claim. Under laws older than human civilization, she had declared Cole not as a political husband, but as her true bondmate. The marriage could not be dissolved, not by politics, not by treaties, only by death. Earth's government responded with fury. Was their hero, their soldier, their citizen. He had completed his mission brilliantly. Now they wanted him back. The court responded with scandal. A princess of the royal blood, soul-bonded to a human, to a creature that would be dead in a mere century. It was unthinkable, it was shameful. It was the greatest insult to tradition in 10,000 years. Factions formed on both sides. Human politicians demanded action. Nobles whispered about assassination. Peace that had seemed certain now trembled on the edge of renewed war. In the middle of it all stood and they met in her private garden, the only place safe from watching eyes and listening ears. His face was calm, but had learned to read the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. "They are calling for your return," she said. "Your admiral has sent 17 formal protests. She says you are being held against your will." Ran a hand through his hair. "What do you want me to say? I told them I'm staying by choice. They don't believe me." "Perhaps because the choice seems impossible to them." His voice was quiet. "A human choosing an alien over his own people, his own world. Is that what you think I'm doing, choosing you over Earth?" Didn't answer. Stepped closer to her. Listen to me, I love Earth. I spent 12 years fighting for it, bleeding for it, but love isn't a limited resource. Caring about you doesn't mean I've stopped caring about my home. He took her hand. I'm not abandoning humanity, I'm trying to build a bridge. Before could respond, a servant appeared at the garden entrance. Her face was pale with fear. Your Highness, the Empress commands your presence in the throne room, both of you. The throne room was vast, a cathedral of crystal and light that stretched up into seeming infinity. Hundreds of nobles had gathered, their silver faces unreadable, their violet eyes fixed on, and as they walked the long path to the throne. And on that throne sat the Empress. She was ancient in a way that went beyond years. Her silver skin was lined with age, but her violet eyes were sharp as laser beams. She had ruled the Dominion for over 2,000 years. She had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and guided her people through crises that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. She was power itself, wrapped in the form of an old woman. Beside the throne stood a group of humans in formal diplomatic uniforms, recognized admiral among them. Her face was hard as stone. Commander Cole, the admiral said as approached, you've caused quite a lot of trouble. Admiral, it's good to see you too. This isn't a joke, his voice was cold. You had a mission, you completed it, now it's time to come home. With respect, Admiral, I've made my choice. Your choice stepped forward. You're one man, one soldier. Do you understand what your choice is doing? The alliance is fracturing. There are factions on both sides calling for renewed war. Billions of lives hang in the balance, and you want to talk about your choice. Before could respond, a new voice cut through the hall. Young, angry, passionate. He is the burning one. Turned, a young had stepped out from the crowd. He couldn't have been more than 50 years old, barely an adult by their standards. His violet eyes blazed with an intensity that had never seen in a before. We have heard the stories, the young alien continued. The human who sits with 6 servants, the human who speaks to us of hope and joy and love, the human who taught our princess to feel. He looked around at the watching nobles. For 10,000 years, we have lived in emotional silence. We told ourselves it was necessary, that feeling too deeply was dangerous. But look at us. We are ghosts going through the motions of life without ever truly living. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The young wasn't finished. The humans burn fast and bright. Their lives are short, but in their short lives they experience more genuine feeling than we do in 1,000 years. They love deeply, they grieve deeply, they live deeply. He pointed at. This human has shown us what we have lost, and some of us want it back. Stared at the young alien, stunned. He wasn't alone. A dozen other young stepped forward to stand beside the first, then 24, then more. The burning one, they said, the words spreading through the crowd like fire through dry grass. The Empress raised one hand, and silence fell instantly. It seems, she said, her ancient voice filling the hall, that our human guest has become something of a symbol. Her violet eyes fixed on with terrible intensity. Tell me, Commander Cole, do you understand what you have done? Do you understand what you have awakened in my people? Met her gaze. I didn't try to awaken anything, Your Majesty. I just tried to be kind. I tried to be honest. I tried to be human. And in doing so, you have started a revolution. The Empress's expression was unreadable. Thousands of my youngest subjects now speak of reclaiming their emotions. They study human art, human music, human literature. They ask questions that have not been asked in 10,000 years. She paused. You are either the greatest threat to the Dominion in or our greatest hope. I have not yet decided which. She turned her gaze to Admiral and the human diplomats. You wish to take him back, to remove this disruptive element from my empire. Her lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Tell me, Admiral, what if I do not wish to let him go? His face tightened. Then we may have a problem, Your Majesty. Indeed, the Empress turned back to. I have one question for you, human, and your entire species may depend on your answer. The hall fell absolutely silent. Do you love my daughter? Felt's hand tightened on his. He felt the weight of hundreds of alien eyes. He felt the fate of 2 civilizations pressing down on his shoulders. And he felt, beneath all of that, the simple truth that had grown in his heart over 6 months of midnight conversations and shared tears. Yes, he said, I love her. I love her more than I have ever loved anything in my short, burning human life. The Empress studied him for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. We shall see, she said. We shall see what this love of yours is worth. She rose from her throne. There will be a trial, not of guilt or innocence, but of truth. 3 days from now in this hall, both humans and will present their cases. And at the end, I will decide the fate of your union and perhaps the fate of both our peoples. She swept out of the hall, leaving chaos in her wake. She looked back at him. 3 days, she said softly. 3 days to prove that what we have is real. Squeezed her hand. Then we'd better make them count. The throne room had never been so full. Every seat was taken. Nobles stood along the crystal walls, their silver faces turned toward the center of the hall. Holographic displays broadcast the proceedings to billions across the Dominion. On Earth, humans watched from their homes, their ships, their colonies scattered across the stars. 2 civilizations held their breath. Stood in the center of the great hall beside him. Across from them stood the human diplomatic delegation, led by Admiral. And above them all, the Empress watched from her ancient throne. "We are gathered," the Empress said, "to determine the truth of a bond, to decide whether the union between Princess and Commander Cole is genuine or merely another political deception." Her violet eyes swept across the assembled crowd. "Let us begin." Admiral stepped forward first. Her voice was strong, clear, and cold. "Your Majesty, honored members of the court, Commander Cole is a hero of the human race. He risked his life on a desperate mission to save his people. He succeeded beyond our wildest hopes." She paused. "But his mission is over. He has a duty to return home to his family, to the world he fought to protect." She turned to, "Commander, I served with you. I know you. You are a man of duty, a man of honor. Whatever feelings you think you have developed, they cannot outweigh your obligations to your own kind." Said nothing, he waited. "They are not like us," continued. "They live for centuries. To Princess is a brief moment, a passing curiosity. In 100 years, when he is dead and gone, she will barely remember his name. This union serves no one. It only creates chaos and division." The Admiral's words hung in the air. Many of the nobles nodded in agreement. Even some of the young ones who had called the Burning One looked uncertain. Then it was turn to speak. She stepped forward, her silver gown flowing like liquid moonlight. For a long moment, she was silent, gathering her thoughts. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the vast hall. "Admiral is right about one thing. I will live for centuries after he is gone. I will watch him grow old and die while I remain unchanged. I will carry the grief of his loss for the rest of my very long life." She paused. "Do you think I have not considered this? Do you think I do not understand what I am choosing?" She turned to face the watching. "For 300 years I have lived in the manner of our people. I have felt nothing deeply. I have loved nothing truly. I have existed, but I have not lived. I thought this was wisdom. I thought this was strength." Her voice grew stronger. "I was wrong." She looked at, and her cold mask fell away completely. What remained was raw, honest, and beautiful. "This human taught me what it means to be truly alive, not through grand gestures or political maneuvering, but through simple kindness. He sat with a sick servant through the night because no one should be alone. He thanked every person who crossed his path because every person matters. He told me stories of his world and asked about mine, not because he had to, but because he genuinely wanted to know." His voice broke slightly. "He taught me that a short life lived fully is worth more than an eternity of emptiness. He taught me that love is not weakness but the greatest strength of all. And yes, I will lose him one day, but I would rather have 50 years of true love than another 500 years of nothing." The hall was utterly silent. Then stepped forward. "I came here as a lie," he said. "I'm not going to pretend otherwise. My mission was to deceive you, to buy time for my people. I expected to be ignored at best, killed at worst. I did not expect to find a home." He looked at Admiral. "You're right, Admiral, I have a duty to my people. But duty isn't the only thing that matters. You didn't send me here just to save humanity. You sent me here to protect what makes humanity worth saving. Our kindness, our compassion, our ability to love even when it doesn't make sense." He turned to address the entire hall. "Humans and have been enemies for 12 years. 12 years of war, of death, of hatred. But in 6 months of actually knowing each other, of talking and listening and caring, and I found something neither of our peoples expected. We found common ground. We found understanding. We found love. Walked to stand directly before the Empress's throne. My people live short lives. We burn fast and bright, but we choose what we burn for, and I choose her." He looked back at his heart in his eyes. Not because she won't let me stay, not because of duty or politics or any of the other reasons that brought me here. I choose her because she is the best thing that has ever happened to me, because being with her makes me more human, not less. He turned back to the Empress. You asked me if I love your daughter. I do. But more than that, I believe in what our love represents. Two people from different worlds finding each other. Two enemies becoming family. If a human and a can love each other, truly love each other, then maybe there's hope for all of us. Silence fell over the hall. The Empress sat motionless on her throne, her ancient face unreadable. Seconds stretched into minutes. The tension was unbearable. Then slowly, something changed in the Empress's expression. The hard lines around her mouth softened. Her violet eyes, which had seemed so cold, began to shine with an unfamiliar light. And she smiled. It was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from her in 200 years. I have ruled this dominion for over 2,000 years, she said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed the birth and death of stars. I thought I had seen everything there was to see. She rose from her throne. I was wrong. She descended from the platform, her ancient bones moving with surprising grace, until she stood before and... The humans were more than we believed, she said. Perhaps they always were. We looked at their short lives and saw weakness. We looked at their strong emotions and saw chaos. We never considered that they might have something to teach us. She took hand in one of hers and Sin the other. This union stands, not as a political arrangement, but as a true bond recognized by the full authority of the Dominion. She looked out at the watching crowd. And let it be the first of many bridges between our peoples. The hall erupted. The young cheered. Even some of the older nobles were nodding, their expressions thoughtful. On the human side, Admiral looked stunned, but slowly, grudgingly, she began to nod as well. In the chaos and celebration, turned too. Tears were streaming down her silver cheeks, but she was smiling, truly smiling, with a joy that lit up her face like a sun. We did it, she whispered. Pulled her close, we did it together. The war that ended with a fake marriage gave way to a golden age that began with a real one. Human artists, musicians, and poets traveled to space, teaching them to feel again. Technology and knowledge flowed to humanity. Two civilizations that had nearly destroyed each other became partners, allies, friends. And at the center of it all stood a human soldier and an alien princess who had proven that love was the most powerful force in any universe. Years later, when asked why she had chosen a human, Empress Consort would smile, a warm, radiant, human smile, and answer. Because he taught me that forever means nothing if you don't have something worth living for. And now, thanks to him, I finally do. Would stand beside her, gray-haired now but still burning bright, and take her hand. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ended with something better. It ended with a beginning.